Well, thank you everyone for joining, and I'm sure there'll be some more coming in as the minutes go on here. My name is Kevin Gray. I'm the manager of arts education here at Fenimore Art Museum, and I'm so glad that you could join us on this Sunday afternoon. Luckily, there's no major breaking news in America that's going to distract from any of this today.
Exactly.
But first and foremost, I want to thank everybody who was able to come in and join the session today. And I want to just stress that the issues that we had on Thursday were completely on the museum's end. Mark was here and ready to go, was very excited, and we were very sad that we weren't able to do our program on Thursday. But we are thrilled to have Mark here today in another day of beautiful weather. And we'll get started
Hmm.
with the interview in just a moment. But let me introduce Mark properly right now. So Marc Hom is recognized as one of the most iconic portrait photographers in the world. He is renowned for photographing some of the most talented, influential, and innovative individuals of our time. He is a regular contributor to Esquire, Entertainment Weekly, and Town and Country. Mark has photographed multiple fashion campaigns for Gucci, Patek Philippe, and Boss, while some of his entertainment clients include Netflix, Showtime, and Amazon. And his exhibition, Marc Hom Reframed, is on view at Fenimore Art Museum through September 2nd, where he is joining us live outside at his amazing, should I call it an installation? What do you call it, Mark? The outdoor portion of your exhibit.
I think it's just an extension really of the inside, but with a different kind of point of view, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Hmm.
it's really remarkable. And I have to say, over the past 10 years or so, we've had exhibitions of many very important photographers, including Ansel Adams, Dorothea Lange, Herb Ritts, Dwayne Michaels, Elliot Erwitt. The name list goes on and on and on. And we have yet to have an exhibit quite like yours that expands out into the backyard. And it's really, really fantastic. So thank you again. Um,
Absolutely.
I have some questions for Mark, but please, along the way, if anybody does have questions, Mark is more than happy to take them as the interview goes on. So anybody who is in the room with us right now, if a question pops up in your mind, please feel free to shout it out. I'm going to actually stop sharing my PowerPoint. I realized I didn't do that yet.
Ah,
There we go.
now I
Um,
can see myself. That's good.
Fantastic. So yes, anytime anybody has any questions, please toss them into the chat here in Zoom and we will get right to your questions. But until that point, Mark, let me ask my first question for you. And that is basically, could you just give us a brief introduction to your exhibition here at the museum? What does it entail? And how did you kind of put it together in the way that you did?
Well, I was invited to do an exhibition up here in 2020, and I was shown this one beautiful room in the corner here inside the museum where usually you have all your photography exhibitions. And of course, being able to do something in this beautiful place was, a dream come through in many ways. The room that I got, given to me was great, but I kept going back and forth and thinking, I want to do something different. I want to challenge myself as well. I've done so many of these, gallery exhibitions that are great and beautiful and everything, in terms of just, framed photographs, beautifully printed, and that's a great thing. But I really felt like I needed to do something different, for me and for the viewer. So I kept going around. I wouldn't say in circles, but a little bit in circles for a couple of weeks, trying to figure out what would that be. And one day I was driving up from New York, towards Cooperstown, and of course, I one of my favorite sculpture parks is Storm King, and I passed by there, and I saw, I go there at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a year. And what I always found so fascinating about Storm King is that everything always changes, right? It changes in the weather, if it's rainy, if it's sunny, if it's cloudy, snow, fall, all seasons, and you get a complete different perspective of what you look at, I think. And I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do these oversized, huge frames that will turn in the wind. And then we went through, then I was lucky enough, there's a lot of amazing craftsmen working up here who's connected to the Glimmer Glass Opera. So we have incredible talent up here who could help me kind of think this through. One thing is to get an idea, as we all know. Another thing is to execute it, right? How do we do it? And then I was looking at this plateau in front of the museum, the one that you actually see right here, right? This is actually the exhibition, and trying to see, okay, how do I really figure out what is 120 feet by 160 feet? I think the measurements were, and how big does the frames need to be? And of course, challenging myself even more, wanted them to turn in the wind. How much wind do you need to turn to turn the frames, and what's secure, and da, da, da. So we got a hold of this engineer who was brilliant, Luke Wyckoff, who found out, how we could do this. So in the beginning, what we did last August already, we actually made a total prototype, the weight, took it down. We had to close down all the roads around the lake to transport this massive frame. And we proved to ourselves that it was actually possible to do it, and how much wind we needed to calculate, and all that. And then came when, of course, really the whole idea is very much about, the juxtaposition between something that's very stationary, which is the inside exhibition, which has 37 images, and this outside here has 28 images. So, and then, after we found out that we could do all this, then we started working with my printers, and of course trying to curate a show. I mean, it's super hard when you've been working for 30 years. You can imagine millions and millions of photographs. And I deliberately really wanted the outside images just to be black and white, since I didn't want to have anything happening from any hues, from green grass or blue sky. So it kind of just stayed neutral, right? And then trying to figure out this printing process, which took us 7 different kind of surfaces and 7 kind of different printing techniques, and then starting printing these big images little by little, that starting with 20%, 30%, 40%, 60%. And then, okay, let's just do, it's a little bit like, the technique was a little bit like when you used to print in the darkroom, right? You would do what's called a strip test. So you would just do a strip all the way through the images, and then hope that everything else would be fine. But when you realize that suddenly things become so big that suddenly you see all kinds of details. Some are super flattering, some are not so flattering. So then you go back and retouch a little bit, and then you go back. And also what was very important for me was that the whole exhibition, inside and outside, felt it has the same DNA, right? I mean, there's images here from '94, there's images from 2003. So there's, of course, starting shooting on film early on, and then switching into digital and trying to make these all look the same, right? That was very important to me. So it didn't feel like, oh, this was old picture, this is a new picture, or, that kind of thing, to make that all feel organic.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. And I have some questions regarding your background and some specific photographs. But
Mhm.
since you're outside, Mark, and for those who haven't been able to come see the show, would you be able to kind of walk up to one of the pictures and just give us a sense of scale back there? Because it's absolutely amazing when you walk up to them.
I'm gonna make walk backwards, but it's lots of sun here.
Give you a
But as you
challenge.
guys can see, there's a person here. Um, and the scale of this woman, as you can see, I mean, it's pretty massive. They are almost 4 meters by 3 meters. They ended up being 9.5 foot by 11.8, I think. And this is kind of, this is where we are.
Yeah. And they're
Super
so
steady.
striking. And they're
And
yeah.
and what we really, of course, the quality really had to be, as beautiful as any inside images in a smaller scale, right? So the detailing is amazing. I'm not usually a very, what should I say, like, I'm not really so much into techniques. I am into techniques more about seeing light and everything. But these I mean, we worked so much on this. I don't know if you can see how clear everything is. I mean, they're
Yeah.
huge.
There's Woody
Um,
Harrelson.
and Woody Harrelson, and then, you know, then there's no wind up here, but they do, they do all turn in the wind, which is great. So 625 pounds. Yeah,
My gosh.
I
And
know.
and it's so like especially in the afternoon, which is when we're doing this right now, is that sunset kind of comes down on them and just
Hmm.
makes them illuminate so amazingly. And
But that's what I mean. That was what was so important for me. That really, again, thinking about how you see this outside part of the exhibition in different lights, right? And when it rains, the raindrops just runs down their faces, and
yeah,
it's just really kind of great.
yeah. And I want to,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
but I must say, when one of the first rains came up, right, you were here.
Yes.
Um, this is all new sodding, and it was like we were walking about in a mud puddle. And one of the frames got in, lifted from a crane, put on the round metal piece. And the guy there who put down the grass, like, all right, let's turn on the water machine now, otherwise the sod is gonna die. I said, no, stop, you can't do it. And then I really had to take a deep breath, right? Because we're not used to seeing photography outside. And then it was like, okay, I guess it is gonna rain after all in the time period of 3 months, so we might as well just get
Yeah.
used to it and just but it was really like letting your 28 people out
Yeah.
of home for the first time.
Yeah, this is the ultimate test, Mark, to put these out in
I
upstate New
know.
York. So if they can last
Exactly.
here, they'll last anywhere. So so
Exactly.
far so
I
far
think.
so good. And just a reminder to everybody in the audience, if you have questions, especially about like any of the particular people that Mark has photographed, Mark has stories about every single person that I'm sure he's more than happy to share with you. Um, but I want to jump back a little bit, Mark. So you're originally from Denmark, and you studied photography at the Royal Danish Academy in Copenhagen before you
Mhm.
came to New York City in '89. And I'm curious, what led you into photography in the first place? What was it about photography that interested you and led you
I
down
don't
this
know. I
path?
just, I grew up with my father being a photographer and filmmaker.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I just kind of really early on wanted to be a photographer, I guess, since I was 16.
Yeah.
So it was kind of of course, an inspiration from whatever you grow up in terms of environment, but also I just kind of really loved it. I was just totally fascinated by it. We used to be spend a lot of time in the dark room with my father, and yeah, and then I just wanted to leave Copenhagen. So I left when I was 21. I just like Copenhagen is a beautiful place, but it's also very kind of, how should I say, small place. When I was 20, I already had done most of the magazines there and all
Uh,
that. So I was just really just wanted to go somewhere where just kind of explore new territories.
yeah. Was it immediately portraiture that drew you, or did you
No,
kind of
I
have to
mean, I
find your way?
started, when I came to New York, I started assisting a little bit. And then, I met this woman called Elena Chanichova, who used to work with American Ballet Theater together with Baryshnikov at that time. And she was hired trying to recreate the Vienna Philharmonic, but they wanted to create a ballet company at that point. And at that time, most of the ballet there was used as, what should you say, not props to the Philharmonic, but it was like they really wanted to put more weight into that. So she hired me to go there for 3 months and do this like kind of book about the company, which was super great. So when I got back to New York, I kind of had something of substance to show around, and I was very lucky to run into, Listil Barras at Harper's Bazaar in '92. She took it over. She came from British Vogue, and she teamed up with them. It was one of the most amazing times, I think, in magazine with Fabian Baron, who was creative director at that time also. So we were these young photographers. We were like 4 or 5 that kind of was under that umbrella for a handful of years.
Hmm.
Mm.
So we have two questions already in the chat.
Mhm.
I'm going to start with this one, with Tanya's question. What has been the most challenging photography skill for you to master, and how did you go about acquiring and mastering that specific skill?
I think there's a lot of things to it. I think there's two very important things is light, right?
Hmm.
We all see light so different. And I think that I've always been fascinated by daylight, because also it's what you see with the eye when you press the shutter, right? There's nothing like flashes or anything going on like that. So I've really worked many, many years. I still do a lot of daylight, shaping daylight, a lot of northern light, because it doesn't change. You can just shape it as you want, because you never get direct sunlight, right? So it's a little bit like going back to old school painting, where a lot of the like I used to shoot a lot. I still do it quite a lot in a place in Paris called Studio Daylight, where you just have that northern light, and it's just so great because you can you cut light, or you put in a curtain, then it gives a shadow, or you use a lot of silver reflectors to bounce in the shadow side, and sometimes I'll use a little fill-in light for certain things. But that was more kind of a technical question. But in the end of the day, what I think is the most important really is it's all about trust, right? I mean, I don't think you can photograph anybody who doesn't want to get photographed. So it's a bit like you have to build up trust really quick a lot of times to create something. And also, I think it's important that the subject that you photograph, that there's a common respect between you and the photographer.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
let's talk about one of those people right now. Let's talk about Willem Dafoe. Jeb wants to know about that beautiful photograph of Willem Dafoe that's out on the back lawn with you, and
Right.
any story you might have about that interesting pose that he's doing and what shooting with him was like.
I mean, I think it's one of those. I mean, he's amazing to work with. First of all, because he wants to be photographed. He likes to be there. He also loves fashion, also loves clothes, and he's so much a chameleon, right? I mean, it's almost just like letting him do what he wants to do. And of course, you just like, shape things the way you want it. But it's I think we did, I don't know, I think we
Yeah.
probably was for the cover of Esquire. I think we must have done maybe like 10 pictures in like 3 hours or something. I mean, sometimes it goes so quick because there's an energy and you kind of have a common understanding of what you guys are after, right?
Yeah.
So it's each subject is so different. I mean,
Yeah.
as humans, I mean, we're all different, right? We all kind of see things different ways,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Are you able to walk out? Because the next question also involves a couple of the people out there on the rear lawn. Would you be able to kind of show us Willem one last time so we can
Sure.
get a sense of him, and then I'll lead you to the next person that we have a question about.
Absolutely.
You're gonna get your exercise during this interview, Mark.
I know. That's okay. Have to find him. Willem, where are you? There he is. Yeah.
So does he just start doing those kinds of poses, or do you lead
No,
him
but it
to
was
them?
almost like ta-da! It's like almost like like a magician or something. I mean, the energy of the hands, I love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's such a, almost like a, what should I say? Like, and I love the energy with the hands, but without, and just his expression being just completely like just stern.
yeah,
See, I like the combination of the two things. I think it really is what creates this picture, and of course the shape. He's
absolutely.
super flexible. He does yoga all the time, and he's just yeah.
Um, Susan mentions that her two favorite pictures outside are of Barbara Streisand and of Anne Hathaway. And
Oh wow.
Anne left a wonderful quote about you that we have up in the gallery, talking about how wonderful you were to work with. So maybe could you bring us over to Anne real quick and talk about working with her?
Yes, I mean, I think this, I've worked quite a lot with her. This was the first time I worked with her, and for me, it's a very, I mean, simple is not a negative thing; it's actually a positive thing, I think. But it's a very simple, but also quite fragile image. I think she was going through some personal things, and we were, I think it's from 2008, maybe or nine, I don't, or maybe 11, I don't remember, but it's also it's also interesting when you capture, you can really feel there's something going on beyond just the photograph, right? I mean, you're capturing something that's going through people's mind, and I really, it is still one of my favorite photographs. I look at it a lot, and I just think it's I don't know, it's just, guess, through your career maybe you will have like 4 or 5 images that are really, this is it, you know what I mean, like.
Yeah. Are you right there? Can
um,
you show us real quick? Or
I can take another walk.
um,
1 second. um 1 second.
luckily it's a
Yeah,
beautiful
but
day
since
outside.
we're out here also designing this and trying to figure out, the minute you blow things up so big, you also have a viewing point of view, and it was kind of interesting just figuring out how far did you need, or
Hmm.
do you need to actually look at an image at that size, right?
Yeah.
So So what we decided is like between 18 and 22 feet between each frame to kind of really get the perspective without, running into any of the other images. Hold on one second.
Yeah,
There's this
absolutely.
tent sitting here on the ground
Yeah.
that I really don't want to look at, but it's okay. We'll do this. So yeah. So this is the image.
There we are.
Yeah.
Hmm. And yeah, you can see that comfort level already,
It
which
just feels very relaxed and very kind of, for me, it's like just a really real picture.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like how much time, and I know it's probably different for each, person that you're photographing, but just on
Mhm.
average, how much time do you get with these, celebrities, these important people to photograph? Because that building of trust and then the taking of the photographs must happen in a very short
But
span
a
of
lot
time.
of, I mean, I'm very privileged and lucky that I work with a lot of publications that gets a lot of time. So from Vanity Fair to Vogue to, Esquire, GQ, all those publications that, that usually we have a day or two, not two, a day most of the time. Sometimes half a day, which is great. And when you do things that are a little bit more, I mean, I work a lot in Cannes for the film festival, and when you're there and it's like you only get maybe 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, not even. So you really have to, I kind of also like those scenarios where you have to really kind of challenge yourself and find an image within where we are, right? So it's like, okay, you really got to invent something out of sometimes nothing. So you have to be quite quick. I mean, I'm not saying nothing, I'm saying nothing in terms of a setting, right? Or a studio setting or whatever. And also to have to, again, as we talked about, this whole building up of trust and getting people to respond on what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, there's one image that kind of talks about this idea of kind of, figuring out the space quickly and making it work for you. I'm going to share my screen. I want to put one image up that I know you have a story about, and it is this one of David Beckham.
Oh yeah,
Can you
yeah.
talk about like where you originally met him and then how you decided to make this particular photograph?
Hmm. This was just when he actually was like, I think it's a couple of weeks after he joined Real Madrid. It was done in Madrid in a hotel, and he was staying in this very, of course, glitchy, kind of very glamorous place with a white piano and white walls. And for me, my sensibility, it got really kind of naff and just felt like a little bit too kind of, I should say, Liberace for such a young guy. You know what I mean? So I said, okay, let's live. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? So then I opened the door out to a hallway, and there was this like kind of textured, kind of worn-in background that I really liked, and that ended up being the picture. So yeah, so you never know what's behind any doors.
Absolutely. And it
Yeah,
does have that nice kind of grit to the background that makes him feel a little bit more tough?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
it works so well. Um, Mark, who are some of your, this is something I've been interested in for a while. Who are some of your photographic influences? Some photographers that maybe you
I mean,
studied
for
during the
sure,
academy or later
no,
on?
for sure, Richard Avedon. He's always been my number one. Also because he's so able to travel between different kind of categories in terms of going from fashion into portraiture, books, exhibitions, all those things that are so important. I think if you can, um, also just it gives you a little bit more depth into reality. I think in terms of just when you challenge yourself and do your books and do your exhibitions, and it's another thing for me that's absolutely important, right? And
Hmm.
to get your work out there, and also it's a lot of fun planning these things. I mean, this has been obviously, I wouldn't say too much fun, but it's been great.
Do you enjoy the post processing part of photography as much as you do the actual taking of the pictures? I'm curious about that too, especially like you've done darkroom and digital.
Yeah,
What about the work after the actual taking of the photographs? Can you talk about that?
I like it when I put up. I'm not really anybody to change what I did originally. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't take a leg from somebody and an arm from another frame, and I don't really comp things.
Hmm.
What I really do is I do my composition in camera, and I rarely change anything. I mean, I might just crop a little bit into the side or make it into a format, or but not really. I'm not really changing anything. That's also, I really do treat the digital media as a film camera, really. I don't shoot very much. When I used to shoot 6, 7 pentax, which I still do sometimes, there's 10 frames in a roll, and I would do 5, 6 rolls for a portrait or whatever. So I'm a little bit like that. I don't really just, some people today just press the button and hope that something's going to come out if they take 7,000 photographs in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That I don't really believe in. I also find it's to build up this concentration between you and the subject. It's really misleading if you just sit there and you press the button all the time. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just seems a little bit sloppy to me, and not really having an idea or a sense of competition. I mean, composition, or yeah, I
Yeah.
just
Do you have any nostalgia for film or darkroom photography, or are
yeah,
you?
absolutely. I mean, mainly the smell in the dark room, right?
Yeah.
Totally toxic, but it was kind of great. Um, but it's also, yeah, I mean, I think there is a nostalgia. There's a nostalgia about, you would stand in the dark room for like 2, 3 days, and you will maybe make, when you had to make one print, there might be 1 out of 10 that you really loved, and that was the one and only, right?
Hmm.
So, so that's also really great that it's like that. But I think, of course, the process is completely different. I'm used to it with your retouches, and you build up grains, and I scan a lot of grains from film that I put on my digital files to kind of just
Hmm.
bug it up.
Yeah.
So you don't have I mean, I really don't need to see details and all the blacks and all that. I don't really think that does anything good whatsoever.
Yeah. Another reminder to folks, please keep typing in your questions. We do have a question about one of the photographs inside. But
Hmm.
before we get there, just another question for you regarding when you work for Esquire or other magazines, what is the what is the process from taking the pictures to getting a certain photograph in the magazine? Because I know that there are editors at the magazine, there are the people who work with the
Yeah,
celebrities who want a certain kind of look.
yeah.
How do you navigate that to finally get from the photograph to the print?
Well, right. That's such a good question. I think, I am, again, lucky enough to work with magazines that don't really get photo approval to anybody. When the subject commit to work for that title, and they understand that the title has certain photographers that they work with, that hopefully their DNA is also part of that publication, right? So, thank God, that not everybody, I would say, but people, I wouldn't say it gets easier and easier, but when you've been doing this for a while, people also know that, there's a track record of what you've been doing in the past, right? And it's like, okay, if you decide to work with me, and that magazine, then that's what you're doing, right?
Mm.
So there's not any photo approval like that from the magazine side towards the subject. And then, I think it's super important that, I want to be proud of the image that I'm doing, right? But I also, in the end of the day, it's so great when somebody that you photograph is happy with the photograph. You know what I mean? Then it's worth everybody's time and effort, right?
Mhm.
And there's times where you kind of have to convince people that this is actually great because you have never looked like that, and they're like, it doesn't look like me. Well, I said it does, but it's another point of view of you.
Mhm.
And that's hard, I think, to be photographed, and understanding that people see you in different ways, right?
Right.
So I think so that's good, but I mean also, um, even if, especially with me that shoots very little, um, I usually send, let's say, for each setup, maybe 3 to 4 frames. And a lot of times, can we see more? And I'm like, yeah, I can see a little bit more, but I really don't have a lot more because I don't shoot a lot. So it's, yeah, I just don't, I feel like also when you have a subject in front of you, you don't want to exhaust this person if you have to do 6 or 8 pictures in different kind of settings, different kind of clothing, because it is still, it doesn't matter if it's Vogue or Vanity Fair, or whatever, it is really also credit driven, right? I mean, all those pages in front of the magazines, all online magazines, they're all paying, right? So you also have to treat that with a bit of respect. And, but that said, I mean, it's, when I started doing, portraiture and then went a lot into fashion, which is great, and models and clothes and all that. But what I feel that this is really why this is so important for me is that it's not about the fashion, but I use the fashion as a spice, right? It's like, you want to simplify certain things, or you want to just put an old shirt on somebody to get kind of a texture, or you want to do things. So, it's yeah, you kind of have to use the fashion to create a story, right?
Well, let's talk about some of those photographs. So the first one, Marianne had a question about a photograph that unfortunately I do not have a image of on my computer. It's
Ah,
yeah, of course, it's of Bruce Dern. It's a wonderful photograph of Bruce holding the newspaper.
mm-hmm.
Um, so Mark, can you talk about that one? If you want to walk inside, we can try that, or if you just want to describe the photo quickly and then just talk about working with Bruce, that would be
We can walk inside real quick.
okay. We'll test out our Wi-Fi and make sure that if he gets logged off, folks, he'll log right back in. I promise.
I
We're
run
going
right back out.
we're going inside the
Um,
museum right now. We can still see you.
Thank you, thank you. Um,
And what's nice is going through this little doorway, it goes directly into the rest
you
of Mark's
guys can see here,
exhibition.
it's really great. So what you have here, you have the wall of photographs that we decided to do in a very kind of almost, I think it's called night black or something, or it has kind of a blue tint, but then the frames are black. But what's so beautiful is that then you come from this kind of, as I tried to describe at the beginning, you come from this very kind of, controlled environment out to these big frames outside the window, right? Are you still there?
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm just
You
enjoying the
get so
view.
quiet. That's okay. And here's the photograph I think you talked about, which is Bruce Dern.
Yes.
Yeah. It was, one of those things. We were shooting in a house in Los Angeles, and I was, he came. He was so sweet. It was just after he did Nebraska, a great movie, and he arrived with a pair of tennis shoes in his hand. And I'm like, "Hi, Bruce. Oh, my publicist told me that I needed to bring my running shoes because we were going to do running pictures." I'm like, never heard about that, but that sounds good. So then he was, he was getting dressed and everything, and I didn't really love the location. I thought it took away a lot from his personality. So I decided just to kind of shoot it against, just against a gray background. And then he was dressed in this tuxedo, and I think it was cold, so he put a rope on top. And then I said, "Listen, why don't you just sit there and read a newspaper?" And then, these things you feed into them. And I think, especially with actors, it's very important to give them a job to do, right? Because that's what they do. So you have to direct them in a way, otherwise they get so bored. I mean, it's like, oh, what am I doing here? I'm not a fashion model.
Yeah. Thank you for going in and showing that.
So
I think what I'll
yeah,
have you do is go back out though, so there's less echo. There is a little bit of echo there in the
okay.
gallery. And while you're going back out, let me pull up another picture that somebody had a question about that I do have on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me one moment to find it again. Do. Okay. Okay. Almost there. And it's one of my favorites too, just because of the pose is so interesting. It is the photograph of Roberto Bolle.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk about this one?
Yeah, this was really great. It was for Vanity Fair, Italy. Roberto Bolle is probably I would say, the most famous male dancer out of Italy. Fantastic dancer. And, the editor-in-chief and I had this long conversation about that's really, they really wanted to treat this as how should I say, their royalty, right? I mean, he is such an icon. And they were thinking about, oh, what about doing something with like heavy draped red, velvet curtains and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, it sounded really, really, how should I say, kind of it had been done before many hundred times, and also this sounded so old, you know. So I was like, okay, so what do I do to do this different? And this is one of the things. I had the feeling I wanted to do something that was kind of with the blue background, but then I saw an orange roll of paper, and then we just put the paper on the floor and we shot it against this gray blue background. And then I said, okay, what's I mean, a lot of times you just have to, you know, you can order things and have props delivered, which is great. You should always have that on site. But a lot of times you just find things around you. And it was shot at an industrial studio in Milan. And I saw that beautiful chair just sitting out in the hallway and just put it in there. And I think it really does have this whole double effect of something that's modern, but also still classic, right?
Mm.
Um, so I really love this picture.
Yeah,
And
it's
also there's no doubt you can see it's the dancer, the feet, the torso. I mean, you know, also sometimes people, I mean, things can be such cliches, right? What do you do with a ballet dancer? A ballet pose? I mean, you've seen that 500 million times, right? It's like, let's figure out something that's a bit different in terms of like breaking up the shape, breaking up, but still seeing, you know, utilize what people are good at, but without going into a cliche. I think that's super important.
absolutely, it's a stunning picture. It's one of my favorites. And
No, thank you.
let me put up another one that happens to be one of my personal favorites. 1 second. Share screen once again. There we are.
Yeah,
That should be Sam Jackson you're looking at right now.
it is Sam Jackson.
Okay, good. Can you talk about how this came to be during this shoot? Because this is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I love this picture. It's probably one of my 10 best pictures, I think. This is funny because you know, before a shoot, it's always in your brain, right? It's always like going back and forth. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And these days people are very much into mood boards of what do you do? Can we see a mood board? I'm like, oh really? I have to do a mood board. It's like I'm not really into that much, but you know, it's what you really understand these days. I mean, maybe it's always been like that, but explaining something to somebody without having an image to show, people get so confused and they see the interpretation of what you're saying can be something totally different than what you had in your mind. Maybe I'm not good enough to transcend it or whatever, you know, to tell about, but it's just mind blowing sometimes. But anyway, we were working on this. We shot this in LA and in the house that we rented. And that night I had a dream that I wanted to do Sam Jackson shaving his head. And I just could not woke up. I was a little jet lag. I woke up at 5 a.m. or something. The shoot started at 10 or 9. So I was like walking around, getting up, you know, all these kind of ideas. And just said, and I've never met Sam before, and kind of, you know, kind of break the ice and hi, how are you? And he started looking at some of my books, and you know, it's like, ah, yeah. And then, you know, I mean, what you also have to understand, a lot of these amazing people, they do come with, you know, 20, 18, 25 people, you know, just people you don't know what they're all doing, but they do arrive. And then, you know, as I said, we did this whole mood board of what we wanted to do. And there was a lot of, you know, there was a lot of clothing, there was a dog, there was different things. But I just really wanted to do this picture because I felt like, you know, it's such a, I don't know. I just had a feeling I wanted to do this picture, but then you know it's like, okay, do I do that the first time and first, you know, couple of hours of the day, or do I do it later, or what's, you know, how is it gonna shape the day, right? I was just, and then I just totally gambled on it. That one morning, I just, like, he said, hi, listen, come up here. I have this, you know, I have this idea I want to do, and we walked into this little bathroom and we closed the door. It was probably, I don't know, 4 square meters or something. Had one assistant in there with. It's a combination of daylight and just a little bit of strobe. And, you know, we just started shooting and it was just so, I mean, I think I might have had this picture as a second frame or something, but you always keep going. And right enough, what happened 5 minutes later, somebody is like knocking at the door. What are you guys doing in there? This is not what we agreed on doing, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, shit, maybe the shoot is over, you know? So I finished up really quick. I said, really, I'm so sorry. I mean, I just really wanted to have this picture. And Sam was like, this is so great. It's so great. And, and then we went kind of back to our original idea, right? Um, so a lot of times you also have to gamble. I mean, you never know if you're gonna win, right? But you just cannot have fear. I mean, these people are amazing talents. They are incredible at what they do, but they're also human. We're all human, right? I mean, just because I'm a photographer, you're an actor, we're still kind of the same. It's just different profession. So I think, we have to utilize the craft of the person who's in front of you. I think that's very important.
Do you know, especially now with digital, do you know when you're going to do a photograph in black and white or in color, or does that come after?
No, that's pretty much because I do different light for color and black and white.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Um, but a lot of times, oh, can we just see that in color? I said no. Sometimes I have to, that's why, Leica came up with these amazing new camera that just, they're not new, it's been there for a while, but just only does black and white, right? So you have one that just does black and white, one that just does color. But I haven't had the guts yet just to do that, So I just keep shooting everything in color, but know that it's gonna be black and white, right? You do a test sometime, you see this is definitely the light that I think is great for black and white or color.
Yeah. One more photograph to talk about, and then we'll get back to the questions. Because I know that this one also has a really fun story to it. Just one second. There we are. Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, he was amazing. Um, Again, the person, I mean, such great memories working with him because he was really, it's just amazing to be with somebody who wants to, again, committed to do a shoot and wants to be there and just get the best out of it, right? I mean, a lot of times you just, they don't really want to be there. Some subjects don't want to be there, just want to go home, whatever. But he was just so great. And we were, shooting at my friend David Netto's house. It's a beautiful Richard Neutra house in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. And we did a lot of different pictures. There's also a great one where he's standing in his underwear, ironing his pajamas and all kinds of stuff. I mean, really kind of, I also didn't want to make it too comic, you know what I mean? Like too kind of mimicky and strange, and just because he's a comedian, or so I kind of want to keep it understated, but with the sense of humor. But anyway, so he's like, oh yeah, it's like 4 o'clock. Why don't let's pretend I'm having a drink? I'm like, okay, great. And then I started shooting, and then suddenly he says, Mark, there is a rabbit here. I said, what are you talking about? I don't see any rabbit. No. I know there's a rabbit. And right enough, he ran into my friend David's daughter's bedroom, and there was, this rabbit in the cage. And he took the rabbit and just held it in his hand, like it was almost like holding something in comfort or something, or giving balance in his body or whatever. And that's how this happened. And it's, again, something that could not have been scripted or anything. It's just, that's actually what I really, really love about what I'm doing, is that you can pre-think, which is always good. It's very good. You should always pre-think, but also concept-wise, you should always do your concepts and whatever. So you have, at least you have you are in the way the director of the shoot, right? So you have something to show to people what you're after. But a lot of the times you will get a little bit of that thought, whatever, or idea from the beginning, but then it develops into something completely different. And sometimes it just becomes better, right? Because it's the unexpected, which is so important.
Yeah. And for me, it feels so perfect for Bryan Cranston because he
I know.
has that, that kind of serious side to him, but also that very manic, comedic side, and it just blends so
Exactly.
perfectly here. It's absolutely fantastic.
No,
So,
but he's a true chameleon, I think.
yeah.
He can do so many different things. So some faces can just change, and they're so adaptable into other scenarios, that, and then there's people that get very typecast and all that, which is kind of also good if it's the right typecast, right?
Tanya has two questions that I'm going to kind of merge together because I think we can. Is there someone that you truly wish to photograph but have not had the opportunity to? And is there someone who has passed on that you missed the opportunity that you wish you had, that you could go back in time? The two-part question.
Hmm. Okay, I think if we stay on the comedian side, right? And that kind of sense of seriousness and comic talent. I think Charlie Chaplin would have been really, really great to photograph, you know. I see him, Bryan Cranston has a little bit of that. I mean, he's not as, you know, obviously, you know, also because, you know, now we're living a time where, you know, you start in the silent movie area, then you go, I mean, but I just think his sensibility and his sense of, first of all, humor and also very, which is a humor and also seriousness, right? The combination of the two. I think I would have loved to photograph him. I think that could have been really something else. And I keep getting that question now, maybe 50 times the last couple of months, who I would like to photograph. I think there's so many great talents out there that, you know, young generation that I think it's fascinating. But I'm also somebody like that I wake up in the morning and I think, okay, you know, my agent would call me and say, listen, do you want to photograph this? Do you want to, well, what do you feel like? And I'm like, that sounds great. That doesn't sound great. So I'm like, I'm also the one that says, you know, I'm also my own editor in terms of how I want to spend my time and what I want to get it. Because it's no matter if you spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, the minute you commit to something, you know, I always try to give 120, 130%, because I think it's a waste of anybody's energy. If you just show up to something that you're not committed to do in your fullest or with your fullest, then it's like, why even do it, right?
Well, it
So
shows in the work, and it's clear that the people you photograph are appreciative of what you've done. Miley Cyrus, for example,
yeah,
she posted about you about a month ago on Instagram about this show, and I think it's up to, I don't know how many likes it's up to now, but it was up to what, like 200,000 likes by the end of
no, I
that
think
first
it was
day.
much like 1.5 million or something.
Oh, okay, even
But
better.
it's that doesn't really matter. But it's a good example because when I was editing this whole exhibition, right, you're looking at all these people, and what I really think, and which I really want to emphasize, is that for me, this whole celebrity world today, it's everybody wants to be famous, but what are people famous for, right? So I think when I look at all these iconic people that are in this show, they're all for me somebody who has really touched me one way or another, or who has a real craft of doing something. You know, if you're a singer, or if you're an actor, or if you're a sculptor, I mean, these people are really iconic people. But it's a good question because when I was sitting editing this, I was like, okay, so who, you know, who in my world, I mean, it's also to be iconic, whatever is that, but very few people are icons early on. It's something that you develop into because you do touch a lot of different people, right? You do touch all kind of, you know, races, all kind of, you know, economy. I mean, yeah, I mean, and in the way, in the end of the day, you have to be the judge of who do you find iconic. So I was sitting during a list of people that I really wanted to be part of this. And funny enough, the first one that came to mind was Miley Cyrus. Then I had Coco Graf, I had Dua Lipa, I had an amazing architect, Dark Engels, had a lot of, like a list of 10 people or something. And the first one was Miley, and we reached out to her team, and she was like, I love it. I want to be part of this. I've never seen anything like it. And a week after, she was in New York with her team, and we spent, you know, an afternoon together at Pier 59 Studio in New York. And so I think, you know, there's so much talent coming up, but I also think it's very hard to find what is really talent and what's not talent, right? I mean, I just think her lyrics are amazing. I think her voice is spectacular. And there's a lot of fluff out there, but I think at the end of the day, people really who has the talent, they will always survive, right? They will always be the ones that we keep listening to, you know?
And for those who haven't heard it, go on YouTube and check out Miley's cover of Jolene by Dolly Parton because it is absolutely stunning. So
Yeah.
here's the photograph of Miley, just so everybody can see. Um, so Danielle wants to know, and I'm curious about this too, when you're not on the clock, when you're not working, what do you
Mhm.
like to photograph? Or do you photograph when you're not on the clock?
Mainly my kids and friends. But I'm also sometimes I really don't like photographing people I know too well.
Hmm.
It's funny because there's this whole kind of synergy of getting to know people. It's like you know, a psychologist, right? I mean, it's like you need to figure out how do you do this, how do you get people to do what you want to do, how do they feel comfortable. Sometimes I really don't like photographing people that I know too well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I never photograph anything that has to do with nature.
Okay.
It's always people. I think we already get too many trees up here in Cooperstown, you know. I need some eyes.
Uh, what about a person in front of nature? Then you can have both.
Right, exactly. Which you see all over the place in this exhibition. Yeah.
Exactly. So last call, we have about 10, 15 minutes left. So last call for questions. If you have your questions, type them into the chat. Jeb wants to know, or can you give an example of one of your most difficult shoots? Why was it difficult and how did you resolve the issue?
Difficult shoot, difficult shoot, difficult shoot.
For any
I,
reason, the
I
difficult.
think, I think, I think one of the most difficult shoots, and also kind of, I should say, I mean, it was probably Amy Winehouse.
Mm,
Photographing her, it was a kind of a lot of mixed emotions in many ways because, of course, I was very, very excited to photograph her. It was just when that Back to Black came out, the beautiful album that was produced by Mark Ronson. And I was in London on the East End, and she came into the studio, which was, of course, seeing her and being such a big fan of her voice and everything and her music. But she also walked in and she was fine for a little bit, and then she went to the restroom, and she was definitely totally under the influence. And it was so sad in many ways, but also so like fantastic to be in the room with that kind of voice in person. Um, but I had two assistants holding her up to balance her on the chair, and then we kind of had to cancel the shoot, and she came back the day after, and picture that I wanted to do, which is the one you look at, and then it just, I don't know, it's kind of really sad seeing a person surrounded by 20 people in the studio and looking at her and seeing what she's going through emotionally and mentally, and nobody's doing anything. So that was that was not an easy one.
yeah. Well, to your credit, it is one of the most iconic photographs ever taken of Amy, and it's a great way to remember her and her
Thank you.
style and her talent. So thank you
Right.
for taking this incredible photograph. Um, Danielle would like to know, this might be a tricky question to kind of as we get towards the end here. If you were not a photographer, is there another passion you have that you would most like to do?
I would probably be an architect,
Really?
I think. Yeah, absolutely. I love um I love visualizing these, buildings and structures. I built a couple of houses and renovated a lot of houses, and I just find it really interesting in terms of like something that's so, in a way, instant gratification of like, okay, here's a wall. Now it's black, now it's white, now it's green, now it's yellow. So I don't know, I just found it really, really interesting also sitting on and drawing something on a piece of paper. And so all of a sudden you have this like 3 or 4 dimensional thing that comes out of the ground and it stands there forever, right? I mean, a lot of the times our pictures, or my pictures, or photographers' pictures, they do live forever, but they also short-lived when they become, I mean, when they end up in a publication, right? They're there for like a month and then they're kind of gone, and then you have them and then you use them for other things and do your books and everything. But I think, yeah, I would definitely have been an architect. Yeah,
Very interesting.
yeah.
Um, I want to put up one last picture here, Mark, and it's actually one of my favorites. And what I love about it is it's not the most famous person in the show. I would say that most of the public is not familiar with this particular person,
Hmm.
but the photograph itself is one of the most striking in the exhibition. And I've heard you talk about it, and you're very
I'm very
um,
curious to see which one that is. Yeah.
and when you talk about it, it's clear that it's a picture that's important to you as well. So I'm going to put this up here.
All right. Yeah.
It's just such a striking face, and the portrait and the way that it's framed with the black shirt. Can you tell us who this person is and tell us why
Yeah.
you love the picture so much?
This is actually, he's been a friend of mine and my family for many, many years. Unfortunately, his name is Torben Ulrich. He just passed away in December.
Hmm.
Incredible guy. think he became a Buddhist, I would say, end of the 40s or something. But he's also happens to be Lars Ulrich from Metallica's father. Um, and he's one of these people you probably all know or have had that experience one way or another, that you meet somebody and you feel like he's like almost like it's like being in an X-ray machine a little bit, you know what I mean? Or he zooms in on you, and he's just. It didn't matter if we were backstage at a Metallica concert, or you were at a dinner party with 10 people or 20 people or whatever, or just meeting on the street in New York with tons of traffic around you. You really felt his presence so much, and he was so always so incredibly interested in knowing about you. You know what I mean? And I was very interested in knowing about him, you know, but he had that kind of very, very special energy. And on that note, I want to take you over
Oh,
to show.
oh, please. I was actually going to
Yeah.
put it up, but I'll let you
Okay.
walk right
No,
to
I
it.
want to just because it's really is it's one of my favorite pictures, and but it's funny sometimes some of your favorite pictures are not other people's favorite picture, right? I mean, it always
Right.
depends on who's the person, what is your relationship with that person. Do you like him? Do you don't like him? Do you like her? Do you don't like her? I mean, it's all comes, you know, it's so interesting how, you know, how we all, where is he? Oh yeah, I'm gonna show you guys.
Yeah, that's
So so this is one of my favorite pictures. It's again Torben and Lars, and it just shows such an energy between, you know, the calmness of I call him the fifth element of the Metallica, right? I mean, he really is the fifth element, and he has a lot to say with their music and everything. But he is also, you know, you see him if you've seen him in concert, which I'm sure you have. I mean, he is probably the drummer in the world that doesn't sit down. I mean, he runs around like crazy, and he is totally explosive. And here you have this like old soul with so much charisma and calmness, just kind of trying to control his son. So I think it really reflects on that so well.
oh,
And Lars totally loved it. I think he might be up here. We'll see if he's gonna make it between he's on tour right now. But you know, it's great. It's great again coming back to talking about, you know, investing time in something and then when, of course, I like the end result, but also when the subject likes the end control end result. I mean, that's just it's very important, right? Because you know,
yeah.
time is valuable, right?
Well, your celebrity, the folks you photograph love the photographs. The people who come to the museum love your photographs. We
That's
here at the museum get to look at them every day. Love your photographs. I know you have an early flight tomorrow, but I have one more question for you, and it
yeah, yeah.
involves the book that is
Hmm.
related to this exhibition. Can you say a few words about the book, which is on sale at our museum shop and on our website at fenimoreartmuseum.org? Do you want to say something about the
And
book?
on Amazon in a week,
Oh,
or
oh.
maybe already. I think it got released, whatever. But we should buy it through the website for sure. Just saying. Yes, this is a book that's very different than the last two I've done. But it's very much a dedication to this museum and to the process of making this exhibition. And it's, you know, I called my publisher Tenorius in Germany, who's done my other books, and I said, listen, I'm working on this project. I think we should do a book about it. And they kind of, you know, said, oh, that sounds great. Tell us a little bit more about it. And I just kind of explained and explained and explained without really knowing what I was, you know, I knew what I was talking about, but without really knowing that this would actually pan out the way, you know, that I was describing, right? Because there's so many valuables in terms of like, you know, this was before we had put the big frame down last August, where we were absolutely much closer to the reality of doing this. But as you know, and as everybody knows, I mean, to do a book is it's a long process, right? So this book is it really is. It's the first chapter is about where it goes from idea to execution, and it describes the whole idea behind it and how we came up with that idea and how we got everything to turn and all that. But it also every single photograph of the exhibitions is in there, and then I was very lucky and feel I mean has so much gratitude towards Nathan Heller. I'm sure you guys know him. He writes for the New Yorker and Vogue and Vanity Fair. An amazing writer that wrote the piece for the book, which is really great, I think. It was actually when I got it, I was like, is that really me? but then I dug a little deeper, and it was actually, no, it's really it really is. I think I'm very proud of this book. It's less.
That's not the book. Change the
It was
picture. Hold on.
it was just on before. You had it on.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a beautiful book. It's 160 pages, and it's really great. If you don't make this exhibition, the book is a great thing to have to see it, but also this exhibition will travel, and you will catch it other places.
Well, Mark, thank you so very much for this talk, for showcasing your work at Fenimore Art Museum. It's absolutely lovely. The installation, I'm going to call it an installation out in the
Yeah,
backyard, is
good.
absolutely stunning, and I hope that everybody has a chance to see it. It's up until September the 2nd here at the museum. And
Hmm.
Mark, you are off on your travels tomorrow. I wish you safe
I am.
travels, and
I am.
hopefully we'll
Thank
see
you,
you here.
everybody. Thanks, Kevin. This was
Yeah.
fun. No, it really is like it's just an amazing. Every time you talk about Cooperstown to anybody, it's like, oh, baseball Hall of Fame. Yes, I said, well, there is baseball for sure, but there's so many other incredible places up here in Cooperstown, and the opera, the Glimmerglass Opera, which is fantastic, and there's so many great writers and artists living up here, and of course, mixed with the baseball people. That I don't know anything about because I'm not a baseball player and I'm from Denmark, but that's okay. But I'm just saying, this place has so much to offer. Wonderful restaurants, an incredible lake, and yeah, I love. I'm really feel really proud of having a house up here.
Well, Mark, we're so glad that you do and that you're able to show your work here. And everybody who joined, thank you so very much. Mark, thank you
Thank you,
again.
everybody. Of
And
course.
have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Take
Bye,
care.
Kevin. Thank you. Bye.